everyone, this is Denise here. Welcome back to my channel, and today we are starting the analysis in 2026 strong with Pinery residences. Just to share a bit about myself, I've actually been in real estate for the last 14 years. I was a millionaire in 2025 and basically I've helped to grow my own portfolio from 1 million to 6.3 million. So follow me on my journey as I do some analysis on different projects, and this year I'm starting off with Pinery in 2026. In today's analysis, we'll be actually covering quite a bit on Pinery residences. Firstly, the residences and mall location, the site plan as well as the unit mix, profits analysis, and 1 to 4 bedroom floor plan analysis, as well as the walkaway price for the project. Is it pricing too high during your ballot queue, or should you walk away, or are there even better options? So I like to do my analysis slightly differently. I don't just like to compare new to new, I like to compare new to resale to see where the opportunities actually are. So just to share a little bit about Tampines, I've actually helped quite a few clients to exit from Tampines itself, and I'll share what I did for one of my clients that I helped to exit for almost 500k in profits itself. So this was a client a couple of years back we met, and then this was somewhere in 2021. They were looking for places that they felt had good opportunities to actually invest and grow their funds. Okay, so why Tampines? I mean, personally for myself, I actually grew up in Tampines, but actually I shifted all the way to the west. Personally, in my memories of Tampines is that it is a very huge and mature estate. So if you look at Tampines itself, you'll notice that a large part of it is all mainly residential. And why did I propose Treasure at Tampines for them? Well, simple. When you have a lot of people staying in one area, naturally people who stay there would like to continue staying there. I mean, Tampines is an area that attracts people from almost everywhere. Some people like to stay near the airport, some people like to stay here because families are here itself. So when you have a lot of people that stay in one area, naturally you know that people want to upgrade in between the area itself. And that's why I actually chose this project for them, because I see this as a mature estate. I see this as an estate that actually draws a lot of upgraders, as well as a lot of people who want to move laterally, maybe from Punggol or Sengkang over here, because there's presence of good schools. There are international schools as well. Who doesn't like to stay in the east, right? I mean, basically everybody always say east side, best side. So if you realize actually in Tampines, there has been a lot of areas that the government has actually carved out. So if you see, a lot of them were going to MOP somewhere in 2024, 2025. You have Green Bloom, Green Flora, Green View, Green Weave. So these are the few large projects that if you notice, they actually contain more than 1,000 units that were going to MOP. And even though there was only going to be maybe 28,000 that MOP in 2023, 2024, we see a lot of them actually upgrading after they sell, after they profit from the 4-room or 5-room flat or need a bigger space. So for example, for the client that I've actually helped previously, in fact, the upgrader actually came from Tampines itself. They were staying in one of the 5 rooms in Green Ridges, and then they decided to actually upgrade. They actually made quite a lot of profit, almost maybe double from their BTO itself, and then they decided to upgrade for a different lifestyle. So they actually upgraded to my client's unit. So we actually offloaded the unit to them, and that's how I actually helped my client to exit with almost 500k in profit in just less than 3 years. People who are going to MOP in this cluster, they might not stay around there. They might move to a different area. For example, if they MOP in this area, they might shift closer towards where it's a bit more central, you know, where there are MRT lines, where the schools are actually located. And that's why I actually chose this project for them previously on why to actually get this project, because I felt that this is a project where a lot of people will want to upgrade to down the line when they reach the MOP itself. And as I mentioned, Tampines is actually a mature estate. There aren't also a lot of new condo options. So Treasure at Tampines was one of the newer projects at that point of time. And that's how I managed to help my clients actually make so much profit in a 3 to 4 year period. So based on what I did for my clients, by choosing the right strategic location for them, by actually looking at the trends in future and the demand in future, I actually predicted that Tampines would be a sweet spot for them to actually buy as an investment itself. It's somewhere they can stay or somewhere they can use as investment as well. So with our PS3 strategy, instead of focusing on investment units somewhere in the CBD or Orchard area, we actually chose a unit that is in Tampines, because I did see that Tampines as a mature estate does have a lot of demand in future from upgraders who want to actually upgrade, and very limited supply. For example, at TOP itself, there were a lot of units selling, maybe about 40-50 units of listings of 4 bedrooms. But if you look at the listings now in Treasure at Tampines, you don't see that many listings anymore for 4 bidders, because for 4 bidders, not many people are selling. So I chose for them a 4 bedroom as well. And after they made these 500k gains, we then went on to buy another 4 bedroom unit, and this is way closer to their kids' school. So they now stay about 2 MRT stops to their kids' school, and not just that, the renovation was also paid through the profits that they had made from this investment home. So if you find that this strategy is helpful, you want to understand how you can have this step-up kind of strategy, feel free to scan the QR code. Let's have a chat and I can understand your plans and situation better. Meanwhile, if you do like my content, do subscribe to the channel so I can share more on my strategy on how I help my clients on their upgrading process. Now let's deep dive into Pinery Residences itself. So let's take a look at the location map. So as you can see, Pinery is located over here. It's basically got residences on top as well as a mall below. If you notice, it's actually very close to Bedok Reservoir as well as Temasek Poly itself. So I would say it kind of borders between Bedok and Tampines. So if you drive down this way, you cut through here is already the PRE that heads to town. Otherwise, you can go to the airport by the other way. So I would say this place is pretty interconnected. That's why I can foresee quite a lot of potential in this project itself. So the developer actually won this land for about 1004 previously. For this site itself, it's actually by Hoi Hub as well as Sunway. As you know, they do a lot of ECs and all their layouts are very popular in the market. For those who are not certain of the area itself, so just to recap, Pinery is right over here. It's in between Bedok and Tampines. You're also very close to the Tampines Round Market over here. And in fact, right across the road is actually St. Hilda's Primary and Secondary School. As you know, St. Hilda's is one of the top schools in Tampines itself. Very, very sought after, and a lot of people actually want to stay near it because they also need to ballot to get in. And also you have Temasek Poly, and also I would say Tampines as a mature estate, you have secondary schools, primary and even tertiary in one area itself. So that's why people who stay in Tampines generally do not like to move out of it. They usually move within the east itself. Here's some project information about Pinery itself. So total number of blocks, 6 blocks, 14 stories, and total is about 588 residential units. You have about 60 restaurants as well as retail spaces within, so 11,300 square meters of retail space. What does it comprise of? Restaurant and retail, supermarket, as well as childcare center. So I think it's also very attractive because what happens is that you have childcare center and all quite integrated in one. I think this really appeals to families who live in the area. For example, they want to put their kid in childcare, they want to have a place where they can actually eat and all that. So it's really very convenient. When you look at the site map itself, you don't actually see a lot of such locations within Tampines itself. Everything is actually quite spread out. Total number of car park lots, you actually have 474, which is about 80%, because what happens is that it's walking distance to the MRT station. So that's why this project is also about 80% of car park lots. Now let's look at the site plan for the first story itself. On the left side is all the F&B. Then you also have this community plaza where people will gather, and then you actually have the lift lobby over here. And on the right side, it's like food court as well as supermarket, and then some level of retail on the right side. So I would say it's quite balanced because you have a lot of F&B, you have supermarket, you have food court, you also have retail. So I think this would generally serve residents who are in the Tampines area itself. And because this mall is actually so family friendly, I believe that some of the retail spaces will also attract vendors who are probably doing learning or tuition and whatsoever. In the weekends itself, it's going to be quite convenient. Parents could drop off their children for tuition and then head to have some food and all that. So I think it's really convenient for residents in the area as well, because there aren't a lot of places. If you look at Tampines itself, it's an old estate, but everything is very spread out. You don't have one place that congregates like the mall, supermarket, and all in one go. So this is actually the exhaust location. So most people are very concerned. For example, those I've spoken to, that were looking at Woodley residences, they're very concerned about the exhaust gas of the food area. If you look at the exhaust location, they're mainly facing towards the Bedok Reservoir Road as well as Tampines Street 94. So those residences that actually stay inside, later I'll share with you the site plan, you'll notice that they aren't heavily affected by any of the exhaust smell itself. And then architecturally, this project almost 100% north-south orientation. Bin centers are also sunken in the basement, so they are hidden from view. And then what happens is that the block-to-block distance is actually pretty okay as well. So if you want to avoid smells and all that, I would say stay towards the right side of the project, because as you can see, the exhaust is actually towards the Bedok Reservoir Road as well as Street 94. So units that are facing within wouldn't have so much of an issue. So like I mentioned earlier, the bin center is actually at the basement, so you won't actually have this bin center because it's an integrated development. So residences are on top. So what happens is that when we look at the distance to distance itself, the largest will be 46, but those in between will be between 26 to about 36 meters itself, block to block. For this project, unfortunately, there's no unblocked views or whatsoever. As I mentioned, Tampines is a mature estate itself. So on the right side is actually green topaz. This will actually TOP in 2028. Next, right in front of the project itself is also green quartz, which will actually TOP in 2026. So this could easily form the buyers who may want to upgrade, because think about it, when they TOP in 2026, which is this year, if they stay to MOP 2031, by then they could be ready to sell and then upgrade to Pinery itself. They might want that extra step of convenience of having a mall right below them, for example. Let's compare Pinery Mall with other integrated developments around Singapore itself. So you have Sengkang Grand Residences. They also have about 80 shops. Pinery has about 60. F&B outlets 20 to 30 and about 150,000 square feet of retail space. Woodleigh Residences is a lot larger. They have 100 plus shops, F&B about 30 plus, and 210,000 square feet of retail space. So I'll say that for Pinery, it's still pretty decent, maybe a bit closer to Sengkang Grand Residences and the Sengkang Grand Mall itself. Now let me deep dive into the property analysis and look at what are the competition of condos within 1 km itself. So within 1 km, we have Aquarius by the Park. This is an older project, TOP year 2000. The nearest one will actually be at Treasure at Tampines. This is our nearest competitor because it's right next to the Tampines Round Market. You also have Clearwater and Baywater. This tree, in fact, was stretched closer towards the Bedok side already. If you look at the map itself, actually Pinery is really at the border of Bedok. That's why within 1 km, actually most of the projects, as you can see, are closer to the Bedok side, nearer to the Bedok Reservoir site actually. Next, for Pinery unit mix, as you can see, 588 units total, 43% are 2 bedrooms, and the 2 bedrooms all come from 2 baths onwards, which means that likelihood is that they want to attract people who want to stay as an investment or at least minimally want to own a 2 bedrooms. Then the rest of the 50% plus will all be 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, as well as 5 bedroom, which only has 1 stack itself. So I would say in terms of this project, it's also likely to cater to those who are looking for own estate because, like I mentioned, Tampines is a mature estate. A lot of the people who stay there are staying there for long term itself. So now I'll go into the project analysis as well as the comparison with other projects within the area. Like I mentioned, I don't like to compare just new to new. I also compare new to resale as well to spot the opportunities. So just to share with you, Bedok Reservoir Road, this entire stretch previously was known as Waterfront View. It was actually en bloc itself, and then what happens is that it carved out to 4 different plots. So do take note on 4 different plots. They were actually en bloc in 2006, but some of the plots actually have different land age. Some start from 2009. Waterfront Waves actually start from 2007, Waterfront Gold 2009, and Waterfront Key also 2007 itself. So these projects, right, the newest ones are already about 12, 13 years old, and later I'll actually share with you for the floor plan, so do stay tuned. Let me now compare Waterfront Key as well as Treasure at Tampines itself. So what happens at Waterfront Key, TOP in 2012, and this is the kind of profit that they made. The person actually went in around 1.5, exited in 2024, they actually made about 500k of profit. Now let's see, with that same budget, actually in the same year itself, you could have possibly bought something at Treasure at Tampines, but it would be a 4 bedroom with the same price point. So with the same price point, for example, if you topped out a little bit, you could have got a 4 bedroom, and this owner actually made about 816k. So essentially, right, with the same budget at that point of time, you could buy a slightly bigger unit, not in your Bedok side with the Bedok Reservoir. If you stretch out further to Tampines, you could have made about 816k in terms of profit itself. Next, I'm going to look at Bedok Waterfront Waves. So Waterfront Waves is built in 2011. Let's take a look at the profits itself. So for a 3 bedroom, a pretty good size, about 1346 square feet, the profit over the last couple of years ranges between 450k to 590k. And then let's say if we compare something similar to Treasure at Tampines, the 3 bedroom itself actually profited about 621k. So essentially, new to resale, actually the profit within the similar period itself actually was about same. So why did they profit about same? Condos in Bedok as well as Tampines, they have very strong capital gains because it's driven by demand in the area. It's a mature estate. Bedok and Tampines are both mature estates, so people who have stayed there a long time, for example, their parents grew up there, they have actually grown up there, they wouldn't want to move somewhere else. Even if they had a BTO maybe elsewhere, maybe in Punggol or Sengkang side, they still want to move back because of not just schools itself, but a mature estate where you actually have a lot of amenities nearby. So now I'm comparing both profit plan. So like I mentioned, Waterfront Waves is already a slightly older project, TOP in 2011, whereas Treasure at Tampines TOP in 2023. So on the left hand side, you actually see the floor plan for Waterfront Waves, the unit that actually transacted. So as you step in, you have a enclosed kitchen, a landscape living and dining space, 2 bedrooms facing one side and then 1 bedroom facing inward. Then you have a bomb shelter as well as a yard and WC. So the property on the left actually made about 590k of profit versus 621k for Treasure at Tampines itself. So Treasure at Tampines, even though it's a smaller unit, as you enter, you don't have that landscape living and dining. It's pretty much like a portrait living and dining. You have master bedroom here and then the second bedroom as well as the third bedroom facing the other side. So the difference really is that a lot of the space, 1270 square feet, is actually wasted on the bay windows. So effectively, this could have been a slightly smaller layout, but either way, you see that the profits in Bedok Reservoir and Tampines side are pretty strong, like I mentioned, due to the reasons I've stated earlier, which is that mature estate, lots of schools, popular amongst people who want to move back to be near their parents. Now let me analyze the condos on the Street 11 part. So as you can see, there's a couple of projects on the Street 11 part, this whole stretch, Tapestry, Q Bay, Waterview and all that, and all the way up to a project called Pasir Ris 8. So I'm going to use this as an example. I can't fit this into one image itself, but I split it so you can get an idea. Basically, after this stretch over here, the green verge and all that, which is over here, it will be actually Pasir Ris 8 itself. So as you can see along the stretch of Street 11, right, most of the projects there, pricing is actually slightly cheaper because they're not so near MRT itself. For example, with a 2 mil budget, you can already get something that's of a 4-bedroom. Let's say if you want something newer, you can look at Tapestry, which is about 2.8 mil. So just now is what we saw, basically the condos near the Bedok Reservoir site. 3 bedrooms are already about 2.2 plus, but if you want a slightly bigger unit, then you would have to look at the stretch at along Street 11 because they are slightly cheaper, but they are not so near the train station itself. So even within this area, Street 11, actually age plays a part. For example, in Santorini, we have a 4-bedder that's asking only about 1.8, and this one TOP 2018. Next to it, along the same stretch, you have something at Tapestry, slightly bigger unit, 1432 square feet, that's asking for 1 million more. So essentially 2 different layouts, one is slightly bigger but it's asking for 1 million more as well. So actually age does play a part in Tampines itself. People would pay that level of amount even for a slightly newer project, even if it's along the same stretch. Now let's compare the profits within those along Street 11 versus, let's say, Pasir Ris 8, because that's an integrated development, something that's a bit more similar to Pinery itself. So for a 3-bedder that was bought in 2021, they actually went in low. They went in about 1.37, so about 1.7, so the profit was about 330. Now, Pasir Ris 8, same thing within the same year, 2021, exited 2025, they actually bought in higher, like around 1.5 plus, but they also exited higher in future. And what happens is that they sold for about 700 plus K of profit. So which means that if you buy into something higher, you also are likely to sell higher in future itself. So people are willing to pay 2.2 now for a brand new 3-bedder in Pasir Ris side because it's an integrated development. Remember, like I mentioned, the ones along Bedok side facing the reservoir was already 2.2. You would have to pay 2.2 plus for Pasir Ris 8 if you wanted something brand new. Now let's look at Alps Residences, another project that's along Street 11 itself. Also bought in 2021, the profit was about 110k. Bought 880, sold 990. Whereas Pasir Ris 8 is newer, it's integrated and all that. This buyer actually bought for about 1.2 plus and sold for about 1.658. So the profit was actually double. In fact, more than double, it's about 3 times more. So you see, even within the same date range, Alps, you actually buy cheaper, but when you sell, you can't also exit as much. Whereas for Pasir Ris 8, they would have bought so much higher. In fact, 50% more. They bought 1.2 plus, but now they can exit about 1.6 plus. So such prices are evident that people are willing to pay that level of price for even Pasir Ris itself for an integrated development. So this shows the strength of having an integrated development in the East, because it's something rare, it's something that people actually sought after, which means that Pinery is likely to be quite sought after in future too. Because as you can see, they would have paid more, but when they exited, they also exited at a higher pricing as compared to Alps, which doesn't have MRT. At 1.6 plus, this buyer who buy a 2-bedroom there, they have plenty of choices. They can even buy something, for example, at Woodley, Residences or whatever, something that's closer, a lot closer to the town, but they still chose to buy in Pasir Ris itself. So as you can see, Tampines, Pasir Ris, integrated developments, there's not a lot, and therefore buyers are willing to pay that slight premium for it. And even then, even in terms of the profit, they are making, let's say, about 3 times more than what you'll be making at Street 11 site, Alps as well as Santorini site. Next, let's take a look at Tapestry, the first and second owner's profits. So as you can see, the first owner only made 667k in profit, but the second owner about 280. So clearly it shows that as a project gets older and older, the amount of profit also gets lesser over time, which means that if you buy a resale, it's unlikely to make the same amount of profit as what the first owner would have made. So this also shows the behavior in Tampines itself. Residents are likely to be more willing to pay more for a newer project rather than an older project. And in the same wavelength for that, I actually help my clients also do analysis within one project itself. So between 1-bedder, 2-bedder, 3-bedders and 4-bedders, some units are actually profiting like 30%, whereas some are actually at 20%, whereas some are only at 5% itself. So with such analysis, this gives you an idea of the project that you're buying. Is it still healthy? Is the demand still strong? So if you'd like to have a chat on this and understand your project better and which project that you're entering, feel free to scan the QR code and get in touch with me. And if you like my content, do share, like and subscribe. So this is a question I get a lot from clients. They always ask me, hey, what about the competition from Rivelle EC? They're launching nearby and they're just right behind you. What happened? Should I go for Rivelle or Pinery itself? So let me give you an example of 2 projects itself. Sengkang Grand Residences as well as Esparina. Esparina is actually an EC but it's a lot older, whereas Sengkang Grand Residences is about maybe say 4 to 5 years old this year. Now, if we look at the price performance of Esparina as well as Sengkang Grand Residences, you'll notice that actually for Sengkang Grand, the PSF is hovering around 2K PSF itself. And in fact, if you look at Esparina Residences, they are roughly about 1,007 to 1,008 range. So it's not too much of a difference, especially when they are just one street apart. So most buyers who buy Pinery will be worried, what if Rivelle eventually comes to compete with me? Yeah, for sure there will be some level of competition, but it will be a different buyer segment between each unit itself. So those who actually want an integrated development, they will naturally go for Sengkang Grand. They also look at like the layouts itself within the projects. So naturally, as you can see in Esparina, because it's older, the 3 bedrooms itself are commanding lesser than Sengkang Grand Residences. For example, a unit of 1066 square feet is transacting around 1.8, whereas in Sengkang Grand Residences is easily above 2.2. So there are still buyers who want to buy in Sengkang Grand because they want to stay above the mall. It's also the layout, whether they like the layout in a newer development or they like something in a slightly older development. So it's of course understandable that both projects, because they're launching about the same time, their TOP will be about the same time itself. But here is the kicker. Basically, Pinery will TOP in 2030, Rivelle will TOP about the same time or maybe later, but their MOP, they still have to serve another 5 years of MOP. So the MOP would only allow them to actually sell in 2035. So for people that are considering between Rivelle as well as Pinery, here's my advice: don't buy an EC. And here's why I'm giving this controversial piece of advice, because of clients that I've worked with. So here's a case study of 100 Palm Residences. As you know, this is an EC that actually sold out in one day itself. And I had 2 clients for this project. So one of them, Client A, did not actually get 100 Palms itself. Unfortunately, their queue was way at the back. They were very sad when they didn't get it. Another client actually got 100 Palms. Now let's see what happens to them in 2025 and 2026. So because they have me as their advisor, what I did for couple A, the one who didn't actually get 100 pounds, what we did was we actually bought a 2-bedder. We actually flipped it, we made pretty good gains, and thereafter we actually bought a landed at 3.6 mil. Now next, for the other client that got 100 pounds, of course they waited out the MOP, but the MOP also took a long time. In fact, they only finished the MOP in early 2025. I sold their place last year in January 2025 itself. So we made about 1 million in terms of profit, and we eventually bought a landed about 5.3 thereabouts. So let's take a look at their portfolio in 2025. So for my client that did not get 100 pounds, like what I mentioned, when I worked with them, I actually flipped the place for them, and then with the cash we made, we actually upgraded to a landed. And eventually they sold for 5.5 million. So imagine that's almost 2 million of profit in just a couple of years and not getting the EC. Whereas the ones who got an EC, they actually now bought a landed about 5 mil. But the thing is that look at the portfolio differences between these two couples. They're both the same age. One of them did not get the EC and one of them actually got the EC. So in this case, if you did get an EC, are you actually missing out, or could there be better opportunities along the way? So what I did for my clients was really to spot the right opportunity, exit at the right time, and therefore, as you can see in terms of their portfolio, one is already up 2 mil in terms of their profit and gains. The other one has made about 1 mil, but now they're entering the market also at about 5 mil plus in terms of a landed. So if you'd like to understand how I strategize for my clients in terms of their property journey, do scan the QR code, let's reach out, and then I can share on how I can actually look at your portfolio and strategize for you as well. So let's go into the floor plan analysis of the units itself. Firstly, I'll be starting off with the 2 bedrooms. So like I mentioned, this project, 43% are actually 2-bedders. So as you can see, the 2-bedders all start out with at least a 2-bed, 2-bath, because most developers these days, they start with like 2-bed, 1-bath, but it hasn't been very popular. Some of the leftover units were all 2-bed, 1-bath. So developers, they also realize that 2-bed, 1-baths may appeal mostly to investors, but as you can see, when they start off with 2-bed, 2-bath, clearly they are actually aiming for those who are starting out the first home, or whether that's singles who want to kickstart their first home journey. As you step in, you actually have the kitchen on both sides. Like basically this side as well as this side, open concept kitchen itself, and it's a dumbbell style, so it's pretty efficient. This size starts from about 624 square feet, and as you can see, quite a lot of the 2-bedders in this project itself, because like I mentioned, about 43% of the units in Pinery are all 2 bedrooms. So developers are also aiming those who are investors want to buy this to actually lease out, because Pinery itself, in terms of location, is very near the airport. You are likely to lease out to people who are at the airport, or maybe air stewardesses, and also you're also aiming people who are working in the east side or maybe Changi Business Park. So I would say this project, the 2-bedders would still have very good take-up rate for those who want to buy it as an investment. Next, layout B2. So as you step in, you actually have a semi-L-shaped kitchen, but I do find this layout a little bit odd because one bedroom is over here, another bedroom is over here. So like as you enter, the bathroom is going to be at this corner itself. I haven't really seen such layout. I actually honestly feel that this B2 layout could be a little bit weird, because what happens is that once you enter, then the bathroom is really like on the right side. I just feel that the typical dumbbell is something that I've seen more and is a bit more comfortable with. So they have 2 stacks of this layout within this project itself. Now let's take a look at floor plan B3. So as you enter, your kitchen is on the left. You actually have your washer and dryer on the right side. Same thing, it's also an open concept kitchen. And then what happens is that you'll have your 2 baths on either right side or left side. So the very traditional layout, this is actually 667 square feet. Next, this is actually the 2-bed plus study. So as you enter, an enclosable kitchen, but what I noticed is that this kitchen doesn't actually have any windows to it. This is something that I am a bit concerned, because if you actually buy this, you can't actually ventilate, then there's no point to actually buy this, because all the air will be actually trapped here, right? And if you see, most of the layouts actually in the middle stacks. This means that because it's not a corner stack, they can't build a window here. Right next to it is going to be another unit. And therefore, I find that honestly, this layout, it is attractive, but I wish for it to have been at the corner so that there's a window itself. So as you enter, you have dining space over here, and then you actually have a study, which is linked to the bedroom too. So you can actually close this up as a proper bedroom. So overall, I find that the B4 layout is something that investors as well as own stay would like, but I think most of them will probably gripe about the kitchen itself not having a window, because effectively, if I cook and all that, then it doesn't really ventilate very well, because it's still like an open concept kitchen. So this might end up still attracting more of people who are investors rather than those who are own stay. I've actually done a rental yield comparison of the 2-bed, 3-bed and 4-beds within the Tampines area, inclusive of all the resale projects. So if you'd like to find out more and understand this project and how it compares to the rest of the other resale projects, do scan the QR code and get in touch. Drop me a WhatsApp and I'm happy to chat more with you. Okay, next, let's go on to the 3-bedroom floor plan analysis itself. So this 3-bedroom floor plan actually starts from 807 square feet, and it kind of reminds me of Goku Land, like what they like to do. They like to actually always have something that is a dumbbell style to actually maximize the layout. So for C1, this is the smallest 3-bedroom layout. As you enter, you have an enclosable kitchen over here with a door, but one thing is that I realized there is no window to ventilate. Either way, you'll still be opening the door most of the time, I feel, for this unit, and the kitchen might end up being really, really dark. People who buy this layout might eventually find the kitchen a bit too small for them. So as you step in, there's dining space. Your bedrooms are actually dumbbell style, so left side and right side. So left side you have 1 bedroom, and then you have your other 2 bedrooms and the bathrooms on the right side. So the reason why the units in C1 actually do not have windows is because they are tucked at the middle stacks. So when you're the middle stack, next door is actually another unit. So when there's another unit, you're unable to actually open up like a window over here, because it's linked to another unit. The wall actually links to another wall of the other unit itself. So that's why I would say this layout is more investment oriented. I feel that for an own stay buyer, they might not choose this layout unless it's due to their affordability. Then they might actually go with this layout itself. But personally, I feel that people who want 3-bedroom will always want a kitchen that actually has a window. If they do some form of cooking, they will definitely want a kitchen that is not enclosed up without any windows. Next, let's go into C2. So as you enter, you have a small storage space here, your dining, as well as a portrait living space and dining space, and the 3 bedrooms are either on the left side or the right side. And this is a semi-enclosable kitchen. Now at least this kitchen has a window over here. You can actually open up, do cooking and all that. So I think this layout, the C2 layout, is going to be something that's quite attractive. In fact, most of the layouts are actually facing inwards towards the facilities area, so it's going to be quite popular as well, maybe due to the budget range and price range. I would say that people, those who have certain budget range, if it launches around maybe say 2004, 2005, they're likely to go for this layout due to their affordability. Now next, let's take a look at C3. So C3, right, once you enter, you actually have a pretty long walkway. So this walkway is actually some level of privacy. I mean, you can actually put like children's bikes and all that there, and then when you walk in, it's actually the dining space and living space. So just to share, I had a unit in Momentum Park that was similar, and what I realized is that the walkway here tends to be pretty dark, because yes, you get privacy, but most people in condo, they wouldn't leave their doors open most of the time. So ends up that this place might be a little dark, just to share on what I actually experienced. And then what happens is that this kitchen is pretty efficient. You actually have a window over here. It's an enclosable kitchen, and then you have 3 bedrooms. So this one is also another layout that I find quite popular, but it's just that I find this part a bit inefficient in terms of the space because of this extra square footage over here. Next, let's take a look at C4. So as we enter, this is the kitchen and then the bomb shelter itself. You have your living space over here and 3 bedrooms as well as 3 baths here, either on the left side or right side for this unit for C4. So at least C4 does come with a bomb shelter. So minimally, I think for those families who are upgrading, Tampines is a mature estate full of a lot of 4-room and 5-room flats. So for people who already want space from their 4-room flats, their 4-room flats are going to be about 900 plus square feet. If they're going to upgrade, they're likely to be taking C4 layout and onwards rather than the C1, C2, C3. So C1, C2, C3 will probably be like couples that don't have any children or investors. Okay, let's move on to C5. So as you enter, you have the kitchen as well as the bomb shelter. So just now what happens is that when we looked at C4 itself, all the bedrooms are facing one way. The difference for this is that all the bedrooms now, 2 of them are facing outwards and then one, which is the master, will face inwards. So I feel that the one facing inward, right, might feel that this might end up a bit darker for this room because these 2 will actually face towards Tampines Avenue 1. So this unit might potentially be a bit noisier. So I can see why the developer put the master bedroom inside, because they wanted it to be quieter. They know that facing the main road, it might be noisy. So they put the 2 common bedrooms here, facing the road, and then the master facing inward. So it might be darker, but it will be quieter as well. Now let's move on to C6 layout. So C6 layout, as you enter, you have the kitchen, you have a bomb shelter, and all the rooms are actually on one side. And as this unit, there's only one stack, it will face inwards. And next we actually have C7, which is actually my favorite layout, and this layout I feel is something that a lot of people want to upgrade to. So as you enter, you have a very good sized kitchen itself. It has a WC and it also has a bomb shelter. You have a portrait living and dining space, but what I really like is how creatively they've done up the master bedroom. So as you can see, the master bedroom is here. There's actually a study and then 2 bedrooms here. So effectively, this master bedroom can actually be really good size. So you can either use it as a study or you can use this study to form part of the master bedroom. So you can actually do maybe say like a walk-in wardrobe, L-shaped walk-in wardrobe over here as well. So for those who are upgrading from a bigger space, a bigger unit, this will be perfect for them, especially if they're coming from their 4-room or 5-room flats. They might want slightly bigger space in terms of, okay, I have a study here in my master bedroom itself. Most of the 5-room flats in Tampines, the extra study space is actually in the living, but this is actually in your master itself. So your master will seem a lot bigger. You can actually put your baby cot here. You can also still build wardrobes over here as well. So I find this layout to be something of my favorite. Basically, it will be my favorite layout amongst all the other 3-bedders in this project itself. As you can see, the developer also knows, that's why they've marked out about 5 different stacks just for this layout, this 1055 square feet C7 layout. So I think during balloting, this will be one of the more popular layouts as well if they are attracting people who are upgrading from the Tampines area. So I've also done a 3-bedroom comparison and exit strategy for this project itself. If you're keen to find out more, do scan the QR code or WhatsApp me and we can have a chat. Now let's go into the 4-bedroom floor plan analysis itself. So 4-bedders, why are they very popular? Because in Tampines, like I mentioned, 4-room, 5-room flats, they don't actually have an extra bedroom. In fact, 5-room flats, they have a carve-out study, but that's only in the living room itself. So what happens if they need an additional bedroom? So they will then look at 4-bedders. So if you look at, say, Parktown, in fact, all the 4-bedders are already fully sold. It's only left with 3+ study and 5-bedroom at the moment. So Pinery's 4-bedders will definitely be something that a lot of people will be eyeing for. So as you step in for D1 layout, you have the kitchen and the storeroom here. And then you have 1 bedroom that has actually a bathroom next to it. And then you have master bath bedroom 2 as well as master bath over here. I would say that for this 4-bedroom layout, right, they have 1 bath that will be shared between 3 different bedrooms. So I'm not sure if that would be adequate for 3 rooms to share 1 bath itself. And they are not linked through Jack and Jill, at least for D1 layout. But what I really like is this store, because you can actually open up over here. It's a bit more flexible. This thin wall means that you can actually open up over here and you can close up over here if you want to actually close it up. So this can form like a helper's room or like an additional storeroom itself. And then you have a WC at the back. So for those who really need space for storage, I would then convert this WC to like an actual storage space. Then this could be like a helper's room. Next, in D2, as you enter, you also have a kitchen itself and a landscape living and dining space, slightly more landscape. Because for D1, if you notice, it's portrait, whereas for this layout, 1195, slightly bigger, is actually a landscape living. And then here you actually have a study space. So it's a bit similar to what most 5-room flats in Tampines actually have, where, like I mentioned, the study is actually at the outside in the living room. That's why you actually have this landscape balcony space. You can actually shift your dining over here as well, or you can remain as it is. And this door you can open up if your helper wants to sleep over here. So I think this layout is actually pretty good for upgraders. So I would say D1 and D2 will be one of my picks for upgraders in the area who need like bigger space. So next we go into D3. As you enter, very similar to D1 and D2 is that you have a kitchen, and instead of the store, they actually have a bomb shelter over here. And what I like is basically the same thing. You have like a landscape living and dining, whereby the study space is actually in the living room itself. Very similar to most 5-room flats in Tampines. And then for this layout, all the bedrooms are tucked either on the left side or the right side, and then you have one smaller bedroom 4, they'll be facing inwards. So generally this layout is something that most people actually like. I think D3 will also attract a lot of upgraders, maybe from ECs or whatsoever, because you not only have this landscape living and dining, you have 4 very good sized bedrooms itself. So next is actually the D4 layout, 1238 square feet. The difference between this and the 1227 is really the long walkway over here. This long walkway, once you get in, is actually like a DB box over here. I mean, you get privacy, but personally I've owned a layout that's similar to this, and what I noticed is that the walkway tends to be pretty dark. So these days, most condos actually have a magnetic door lock. So most people wouldn't leave their door open intentionally because there could be, alarm sound or whatsoever. So as you enter, the space, I noticed the difference between this and the previous layout would really be at this side, the walkway. So as you enter, same thing, you get this landscape living and dining space. Dining can be shifted out over here, but basically you have this nice study here that forms part of the living room itself. And then instead of a storeroom, you have a bomb shelter, and then the rest of the 4 bedrooms. So pretty much similar to D3. The difference between D4 and D3 is really just this walkway over here. And finally, you have D5, which is the biggest 4-bedroom layout in the project itself. As you enter, also a slightly longer walkway, you have a dry kitchen and a wet kitchen. As you can see, the wet kitchen is really big. And then your kitchen, your dining here, you can even place it in the balcony itself. Same thing, landscape living space. And then this time round, they actually have a junior master because 2 of the rooms actually are connected to the bathroom. So which means that you can actually do like a Jack and Jill between these 2 rooms itself. And then you have a 3rd bath, which probably bedroom 4 would then use. The master bedroom is really generous in terms of the size because you have a walk-in wardrobe that's connected to the master bath. This is the biggest layout, 1389 square feet. So likelihood is that most people who are upgrading, this will attract those who really want the space whereby, okay, you want a bigger master bedroom space, you also want that landscape living dining space, and you want 3 proper toilets for your family members. And finally, you only have one 5-bedroom stack, and let me share with you how it's being laid out. So as you step in, very good size living space, landscape basically. You can place your dining horizontally, and then you have your living space over here. And what happens is that this wall, as they mentioned, is actually hackable. So you can actually make this into a larger living room if you wanted to. The rest of the 5 bedrooms, 4 of them are actually facing towards the pool itself, and then 1 will be actually facing inwards. So this one will be slightly a bit darker in terms of this room. So same thing, it's slightly an upgraded version of the previous floor plan as you saw, D5, because what happens is that the master bedroom is now the same size as D5, but you get 1 more extra bedroom. So likewise, I feel that 5-bedders in Tampines itself, I mean, if you're looking at Parktown, a lot of the units left are 5 bedrooms. So I'm not too certain whether this layout will still be attractive enough for people to buy at 2004 to 2006 per square feet. So we've spoken a lot about the prices, the layouts and all that, and comparisons between this as well as resale projects. Let me backtrack to a slide that I showed you earlier. So basically in Tampines itself, for a project that was built in 2018, it's asking for 1.8 for a 4-bedroom versus a unit that is actually 3 years later, they're asking for 1 mil more. So as you can see in Tampines itself, it's a very unique estate whereby people may be willing to pay 1 mil more for a slightly larger layout depending on their family needs. So now we've spoken a lot about Pinery itself. We've all seen how successful the previous launches were from Pinery, Zion Grand. It seems like all the new launches are starting to be snapped up very quickly. But in the project itself, there's going to be a certain number of units that are at the sweet spot of the project itself, whereby it's not overpriced and it still has room to grow. So what is your walkaway price for the project? So when working with my clients, for example, I'll look through their finances and I'll share with them what could be the walkaway price for the project itself, where it becomes a bit too expensive for them to enter. So if you'd like to find out more, you want to understand more about this project and what your walkaway price should be for this project, what will be the PSF at your queue, do scan the QR code and then WhatsApp me and we can have a chat about it. So if you have stayed through all the way itself, essentially my investing strategy is that don't get into a unit that traps your profits. Get into something where you can still make profits, and that's essentially what I do for my clients on a day-to-day basis. If you want to find out more, understand your options better, scan the QR code and let's have a conversation. If you like my content, do subscribe and I'll see you next time.